And I see Deb. Hey, Deb. She ready to come on?
Hey, Chris.
How you doing? Happy New Year, Poe.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you must not be able to hear me.
Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I can hear you. I just wasn't sure if you could.
Oh, yeah, you're coming through clear. Very good.
How are you?
Oh, I'm
Huh?
tired. I said you're coming through loud and clear.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, what?
you're good. You're good.
Okay. Okay, good. Hopefully, I get my audio problems worked out. So we'll see. We'll see how that works. So, do you have a nice Christmas?
Yes, I did. Did you? I had a nice Christmas. Very nice Christmas, actually.
Well, I got some news to share just in case. And this is for those who may not have heard me. I ended up on the round table yesterday. For me, it's still yesterday. It's it's still January 1st for me. So right now, I was sharing yesterday with Soko and Dano and Sassy that my sister told me, with the passing of my brother-in-law, and I didn't know this, with the work he did, he was the lead investigator into, and I'm assuming because she said 2018. I don't know if the investigation started in 2018, but it was into the election integrity of 2016. Or
Really?
she said, like I said, she said 18, so I'm assuming it was 2016, 2020, wow, and 2024. So, and right before he passed away, the day before he passed away, which would have been a Sunday, he sent I don't know if it was a report. I don't know anything other than what she told me, but that she was told that he sent an email, I guess, to his supervisors or whomever. And so, but the work he did went all the way to the presidential desk.
Wow.
I think I've told y'all that before. So
I knew you said something about work he had done, but you never specified. I didn't know it was on the elections.
that was something new she told over the Christmas, because we went and spent with the family, with her and her family over the Christmas. This was stuff we had planned on this last year from Thanksgiving, or I say from 2023 Thanksgiving. We all got together and we said, let's do this for Christmas. So we went ahead and met for Christmas. Of course, emotions were a little bit on roller coasters, and so, but yeah, it was just, I didn't know the scope of his work. I knew he worked, I knew he was working in DOD, but as a contractor, civilian contractor. But he was apparently, from everything I'm gathering, he was very well respected in that.
He was trying to save America. That's awesome. What a great legacy for his kids and his wife. His whole family should be very proud of him.
My problem, my whole thing is, it's like I pointed out, I told him, because when I'm around them, I mean, of course he can't, I'm sure he can't talk about what he was doing. He didn't talk about, but they still went along with the narrative. Putin's the bad guy, and I'm like, but from what we've seen of Putin is not the bad guy that people think he is. He's out there. He's been taking down biolabs, and
that's why he went That's why he went to the Ukraine in the first place, was to get the bioweapon labs. And that was the very first thing when he went in there. And as soon as I found out it was about bioweapon labs, because it happened during COVID, I knew instantly why he did it. He was trying to protect his nation, because those bioweapon labs were ours, and they were right next to Russia. He was doing what he should have done, and I'd expect my president to do that.
Well, and just think, we talked about before how he stopped allowing U.S. United States citizens to adopt Russian kids,
Mhm.
you know?
Back in the
And,
day, it
you know,
was. Okay.
well, prior to the 2016 election, and also, I mean, I have a friend, she passed away, but she was in her 80s and passed away, and she actually went to Russia. She was a missionary. I don't think she was a missionary for Russia, but she'd been to Russia, and she told me back in 2016 that he protected the Orthodox Christian churches in Russia. Even though he may not have been a Christian, but he was protecting the churches. So it's
You think
I don't know.
they do the best they can. They want to protect their country. He is one of the richest people in the world. He wants to protect that legacy, his children, his grandchildren, and protect his reputation and protect his nation. I mean, that's what he does, and his nation comes first. Just like with Trump, our nation comes first, and his legacy and his children and grandchildren, he's trying to protect them, and I think that's the main reason that he went into politics, was to protect his family. Because I mean, if the United States falls, there's no place to run to. So, and he knows that. He traveled the world, and this is the best place to live. So, yeah, it's when you see them doing things like that, it might seem like aggression, but you realize that no, there's a reason. When I found out they were bioweapons labs, it's like, okay, that makes sense. He didn't just willy-nilly go in and start busting up Ukraine. And then who goes running over there? Nancy Pelosi, Justin Trudeau, Mittens, all these U.S. politicians and the head of Canada go racing over there after we sent the first aid package to scoop it up and bring it right back and shove it in their bank accounts. It's just disgusting. That's why all the money's going to Ukraine, because it's corrupt, and then go get it back. It's money laundering. Oh my gosh, this is terrible.
Right.
They aren't going to get away.
Well, considering the fact that, well, and he's also trying to keep NATO out of Russia. Yeah. Is it NATO or the UN out of Russia?
Well, the UN can't come in. That's NATO.
Well, I'm not very up on world politics, so I don't know. But I mean, I know that, we know the WHO, the WHO,
the dirtbags,
UN, the WHO and the WHO and the WHO and the UN and the
and the WHO. They all come from the UN. Yep, they all sprout from the UN.
And we all know that they were put in place for the one world government, the New World Order.
Yeah, isn't it funny how every day the Bible gets proven right? It's crazy.
Yeah. But so what did you think about Carter? I mean, it's interesting because Carter was, someone pointed out, Carter was born in 1924, so was Bush 41, which made those two, if you take those 2 year dates together, that equals to 48. And when was it that, I guess the Balfour was in 48, that we get the deep state Israel? Was that when that happened? Because I know there were two. I'm sure chat knows.
Yeah, they know. I got like 2 hours of sleep last night, so my brain's kind of half dead. But when people go off about Israel and the creation of Israel, you have to remember it was predicted in the Bible to the very day that it would become a state again. And the Bible even says, can a nation become, how did it put that? Can a people become a nation? Oh, can a nation be created in a day? And it was. In one day, Israel was back. The only people group that's ever regained their homeland after losing it. And May 14th, 1948, somebody did the math on it from the prophecy, and it was like, well, there it is. So
yeah.
And people like to say, the Rothschilds. It's like, oh God, no, the Rothschilds weren't even around. If you look into Herschel, what's his name? His last name. He had almost I think there were only a couple of Rothschilds floating around at the time, but none of them in Israel. When he got in there in the late 1800s and started cleaning it up, he formed a Jewish bank. and started gathering the people, and then got the nation became the nation. And they were like, it was amazing how it came together. Herzl was his last name, I think. Anyway, yeah, my brain's not working. But yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there that because everybody wants to hate the Jews. Oh, hating on the Jews. The Jews, they're like they're killing the world. They forget that Bill Gates is not a Jew. Some of the stuff they say is just sad because they're not thinking, and they're buying things willy-nilly and not doing any research. Are there bad Jews? Yes. Are there bad Asians? Yes. Are there bad Americans? Yes. There are really good ones of all also. So, and they have a deep state in Israel, just like we do, like you were starting to say there.
That's the reason why we're told that Israel will be last, Oh,
and I'm curious to see what Q says about that, because they haven't, well, when October 7th happened, a lot of people don't know this. It's just come out in the last couple of days that they had planned that for years. That event had been planned for years. They infiltrated the police, they infiltrated the government. All that stuff was infiltrated. That's why they knew what they were doing, and they got away with it pretty much. I mean, they still have hostages and nothing's happened to them, really. I mean, they're going in out. If they give the hostages, I think things would settle down quite a bit. But it's a millennia old battle between brothers, basically, and it's good versus evil if you look at it. It's crazy.
Well,
sad.
I remember when it happened, and people were even talking about how could they be taken by surprise? People even back then were saying there's something odd about this. This was an inside job, just like 9/11.
Yeah, it was, because they'd infiltrated. But you have to remember, they don't do anything. I play Sergio and Rhoda, and I've got a video that I played where he goes out in the middle of a 4-lane highway and lays down. I'll never get hit by a car today, because it's Shabbat. They don't drive cars. They can't even push an elevator button because it's work. And so the day that they got in, they knew their enemy. They came in, they knew there'd be they can't use a cell phone. They can't use a regular phone. They can't go anywhere. They're pretty much stuck at home doing nothing. And they came in on that day, plus it was a high holiday. So people were home, and without a cell phone, none of them had their cell phones on. There was no communication. So when they came through, how do people there get a hold of somebody that doesn't have a cell phone on? They're not going to answer the phone. There's nobody at the other end. So they could scream all they wanted as they were being chased down, raped, and butchered. On the phone, there's nothing they could do. So yeah, it makes sense that they got in and did as much damage as they did. And you have to remember, Ehud Barak has been trying to get Netanyahu he hates him. They're separate parties. It's kind of like our Democrat-Republican thing. Yeah. He was a former president, and I think he was in on it. He has a group of people they're soldiers that are with him. There are different people that are with him, and I think that's how they carried it out, was through him. Yeah. I haven't got any proof on that, but it makes sense when you think about how well they were able to organize and get through, and they knew the enemy so well.
Yeah. Well, did you see today? I saw a report today that Israel deflected a couple of missiles from Gaza today.
Oh, really? Yeah, I haven't seen.
Yeah, and apparently they did the same thing last year too. New Year's Eve last year.
I'm surprised how many people don't know Gaza as a city. They just got like $3 billion. The U.S. gave Gaza, the city, $3 billion. And people, Israel's the size of New Jersey. Gaza's a city, and technically, I mean, Israel's a smart country. They've got lots of weapons. If they wanted to wipe out Gaza, they could do it in 5 minutes. That's so stupid to think they can't. Just like Putin in Ukraine. If he wanted to get rid of Ukraine, he could go in and just carpet bomb the place and be over with.
Right. Well, and the whole thing is it goes back to the Bible, and this is land that God gave Israel, and the thing is, for the majority of it, from what I've heard, and this is from an IDF soldier who he's not a Christian, but he says we just want to live in peace. Yeah. We just want these people to stop trying to take us out. And they have 7 fronts. They have 7 basic enemies surrounding them, and I mean it's Israel's land, And when I say Israel, I mean the tribe of Israel through the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
No. There's a lot more than that, even because you think about the Levant covers a huge, huge area. The Levant, remember Obama was talking about the Levant? That is the promised land. Very little wavering on the boundary lines. Also, people barking about Gaza. Gaza used to belong to Israel, and they handed it over to those people. They gave it to them. They don't want it. It's stupid to even think that. It's just nuts what the people don't know history. And a lot of them are blinded to it by hate. They don't want to hear it. They just don't. It's like, oh, I don't believe that. I don't believe. It's like, well, that's fine because it doesn't make sense unless you see it the way the facts sit.
It was Bush 43 that brokered the deal that they gave them Gaza.
Yeah.
It's 2005, right before Katrina hit.
Yep, wasn't that long ago, really, when you think about it. But they gave it to them, and they've destroyed it. But no, a lot of what I think what they wanted it because they could be within the borders. It's so close to Israel. And you think Israel's this itty bitty little sliver of a country. All the rest, all around it is all Muslim. Why don't they just leave it? It's just a tiny little spot, but they can't. They want all of it. They literally want all of it, and they want every Jew dead. They come out and say it. It's not something I'm making up. You can go look it up. They'll sit there and tell you to your face. And they want us dead, too. The little Satan, we're the big Satan. They want us all dead.
Well, did you see that there was a pro-Hamas demonstration, I think, in New York? I think it was in New York today. Like I said, it's still January 1st for me, so
yeah, today. Same here. And after what happened in New Orleans, there was a flag. There was an ISIS flag on the back of that guy's truck. There's a picture of the police taking evidence photos of it on the ground. They have it laid out on the pavement. And it was, and they're trying to hide everything they said about it initially was a lie, trying to protect the Muslims. And now I guess the mosque from where that guy lives, they're saying not to talk to anybody, to refer them to care. They can't talk to the FBI. They can't talk to the police. They can't talk to anybody. But they're trying to protect these people. So all these people brought in by the Obama administration, which Biden, of course, is that's an extension. We know he's not running things. All these Muslims brought in, and you see this what happened today. And I've seen some of the pictures. There's a picture of brains on the pavement and the girl that belongs to them down the road with blood all over the place. He slaughtered people. I'm looking at his name right now, Shamsuddin Jabbar. He worked for the government.
Right.
And so did the one that was in the Tesla in front of Trump Tower.
And the rental car, the same company of the rental car for both of them.
Yeah, for both of them. Yeah. The one guy, 37, they just came out with his name about 45 minutes ago, from Colorado Springs. He was a Green Beret. I do have questions about that because I know that they can. I remember.
That's funny because we were just in Colorado Springs for Christmas.
Yeah, well, that's where my ex's son lived. He's a Green Beret also. That's where they lived, was in Colorado Springs. It was a big community of them there. But I remember Hastings and his car. They'd been tampering with it, and it ends up. It was a Mercedes. And it took off with him in it. Supposedly the gas pedal stuck or something, but it was overridden. It was an autopilot thing that had been put in and kicked in. And there was another car that did the actor. But I just think that that's kind of maybe what happened with that Tesla car. Is it's possible he just happened to be a patsy. Yep, and also her lawyer died the week before, and they were both trying to expose the child trafficking stuff. But I think there's something going on with all that.
Oh, and Elon Musk also came out and said it was there was an incendiary device. There was detonated, that one. And if I remember the report and I heard it correctly, I think the one in New Orleans, and the vehicle in New Orleans was an EV, wasn't it? Weren't they both EVs?
Yeah, and there was
So,
the one parked in front of Trump Tower had a pickup exactly like the one in New Orleans parked in front of it.
I
White,
thought that
even the same color. That was weird.
I thought the one in that the one in Trump Tower was a one of those cyber
It
trucks.
was a Tesla, but parked right in front of it was a Ford.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I can't remember.
I
Just
just
like
didn't
the
know if
one in
you
the
did.
picture or from that one guy that killed everybody.
Well, that when I kept when I kept when I kept saw when I kept saw when I kept seeing the pictures of the one by Trump Tower, I all I kept thinking was it Christmas of 2018 with the Nashville bombing. You
Yeah.
remember that?
Yep.
That's all I
Yep.
kept thinking about.
Yeah. Captain Liberty talked about that. Yeah. It's interesting these things that are happening and how people are waking up and they're the good thing about Twitter is they've all got, these people, everything's coming out, boom, boom, boom. And as it goes along, they're showing all kinds of pictures of this guy, showing pictures of Jabbar. They're finding pictures of the guy's girlfriend and finding out that she's a Democrat and she's got anti-Trump stuff. I mean, it's just interesting how fast the information come out. Of course, you have to vet all that. You have to go through and see because sometimes it's not true, or they're on a rabbit hole. They take a wrong turn. So eventually, it shakes out. Within a few days, all that stuff gets shaked out, and you can paint a pretty good picture. And to me, it looks like a psyop because who stands to gain? Well, the guy in New Orleans had guns on him, a stolen gun, a stolen pistol, I think a Glock, and a rifle and a bunch of ammo, and he had bombs supposedly, and they're still defusing them. Apparently, they're still right now defusing them.
Yeah, I thought didn't they? I mean, because I saw one report saying there was multiple people planting those bombs, but
Yeah, five of them. Now they're saying, "Oh no, 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 they weren't doing that. They just put the package there, but they didn't detonate." It was like, no, no, you're not going to. And then the lady that did the announcing, everybody is going, what is with that one? She could barely speak English. She was so dumb. She was the one that announced and you had Kennedy, the senator, standing behind her, and another guy. And it's funny because they nodded at the same time about something. It was really weird watching them all. They reminded me of the conference that Joe Lombardi did after the Harvest Festival shootings. It was very strange.
well,
Uh,
you saw the lightning strikes. Did you see that about the lightning strikes?
I saw the video and I was totally off today. I was out of it and I just saw somebody played a video of lightning striking the Capitol, but somebody else said no, it struck three buildings.
Yeah, the Capitol, the oh gosh, now I'm having a part. The Washington Monument, and
Wow.
I want to say the World Trade Center, but no, is it the World Trade Center?
No, that's in New York. It'd be maybe the Jefferson.
No, wasn't
Oh,
that? But you think about the Washington Monument. The Washington Monument is a phallic symbol.
yep. Yep. 666 feet high, supposedly.
Let me see. I know I can find it. Let me see it. Let me check it. I know I saw it. There were like three buildings. Let me see. Let me find it. Hold on. It should take me that long.
The
Okay, yeah.
Washington Monument gets struck a lot. It's got a lightning.
Empire State Building. The
Oh, so
Empire State.
it wasn't the same bolt. It was just lightning today that hit things. Because
Well,
the
it
Empire
was.
State Building's in New York and DC's
Yeah.
several hundred miles away.
So it was Empire State Building, the Capitol Building, and the Washington Monument.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
some
They were
people.
saying it was a freak storm too.
So, and well, yeah, you think about that. But one of the people I follow, has been saying that President Trump is bringing new energy, and this may have been something to that effect. Is the new energy coming out? God's prophetic, showing His prophetic power.
Yeah.
So, bringing new energy, free energy.
Or it could be a statement on punishment for what's coming.
I hope so. I tell you what, I mean, I know I keep saying it, but January 20th. Well, I asked, I'm wondering if this is going to be a distraction. I mean, all these things are distracting from something.
Yeah.
And I kept, I pointed out, I wonder if they're going to try to put off the inauguration. Wouldn't it be interesting if the inauguration doesn't happen until March the 4th, which was the original inauguration?
Yeah, I could still see Trump becoming Speaker of the House too. And then stepping up to president. Interesting things coming down the pike. I know they're trying to stop him from getting in, so.
I know. I mean, they didn't. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, even before this, they were talking about the Democrats were trying to say that they're not going to certify because Trump, to try to install Kamala. I'm just like, are you kidding me?
Good luck. Good luck.
I mean, the narrative, it was just enough to keep people going, and get them all.
Well, the new Congress signs in day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think the 6th is their first day of business, but I'm not sure. But they can start right away. They can start day after tomorrow. And start with things that have to be done. So people think they have to wait for Trump. They don't really. They can start marching right now, get things done. I'm sure he's been talking to them.
Well, I mean, there's been talk, and I've seen things where shows how that some of his appointments can be put in without even a vote. So I mean, you think about the scary nature. I still think no matter what I don't trust Elon Musk, but I still think there's a scary. I think some of these appointments are going by this Scaramucci model. They're put in there for a short period of time.
I agree.
To get something accomplished, and once that happens, that position's going to go away. I can't tell you all of them, but I think one of the things with Elon,
Yeah, they're temporary. Well, I think they're in there. Some of them are in there to dismantle the agencies. They're in there to clean it up so they can be dismantled, like the FBI. I'm hoping IRS. It's going to be gone. CIA. Although he said something to the CIA today about going and doing something, talking about how corrupt everything was. We need to get moving. And I thought, who's he talking to? Because they're all corrupt there. Mm-hmm. The people in charge are corrupt. Maybe some of the little lower echelon people aren't. I would think that's pretty rare. But yeah, he made a comment today about the CIA getting your butt in gear and start doing things. So I don't know that was a message to somebody. I don't know who.
Yeah. Well, I know, Tom Fitton with Judicial Watch has been talking about a lot of stuff too. That
I like him.
That he's that they have pointed out, or that some of their I'm going to say lawsuits. And Fannie Willis is out.
Who?
Fannie Willis.
Oh yes,
she's out.
Thank God.
I mean, oh my gosh.
A little movement. Anyway, what a creep she is.
Oh my gosh.
She is so corrupt. There's a bunch of them, though, that she's just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah.
Oh, and did you see that? Oh, speaking of Georgia, there's that judge. He got.
Yeah.
And I mean, what's going on there? Because he was. He was not okay. So he ran for the 2024. He lost his election bid. He asked Kemp. He wanted to resign the day before. So his term was up, or his term was up December 31st. But he asked to resign a day before, which would have been December the 30th. And Kemp said no. So all of a sudden. That is just, there's something more there. It's not just, it's not just as simple, he took his own life,
That was it said that he was bankrupt. He had lost everything. He had tried to get his business going and it completely flopped. and apparently had nothing. And he was fairly old, so he had no retirement. He probably was looking at a very, it doesn't mean that he actually killed himself either. Somebody else could have done it.
That's what I'm saying. There's something more behind
because
that. It's
supposedly he was bankrupt, so who knows?
Well, the judge is Stephen Yekel. Yekel, Yeckel.
Yeah, I wonder what's going on with it. Sometimes a spade is just a spade. He may have killed himself. That does happen, but anymore you have to question it. With all the airplane crashes and everything, it's like, what's going on? Suddenly out of nowhere, they're dropping out of the sky. And both times they claimed it was birds.
Oh, yeah. I'm just going to read this. This is what struck me as odd. Okay. He appeared to have shot himself multiple times.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Sounds like a Hillary hit.
He had more than 45 years of experience. Let's see. He was military college, Auburn University. He was a temporary judge at the Chatham County Recorder's Court. Let's see. He's scheduled pending civil cases to assess the needs for trials while aiming to reduce the backlog. He was focused on collecting over $200,000 in state court fines stemming from suspended sentences. Introduced a domestic violence policy ensuring victims were notified of all court appearances and consulting regarding case dispositions. Let me see though. He lost the re-election. Reportedly, he tried to resign from his position, but was not permitted to do so by Kemp.
That's weird.
He requested that his resignation at the state court judge of Effington be effective December 30th, so a day before the end of his term. However, this is what I found really, this article. However, Governor Kemp denied his request, asserting that the results of a fair election cannot be overturned due to what he described as a manufactured legal technicality. Which, that doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how would being able to resign a day early, that whole...
One whole day, yeah, what's up with that? There was something they wanted him to do, maybe?
Who knows?
Yeah, for him to stay there one more day, or it was a matter of if he didn't stay there for that day, maybe it had to do with his term and getting the next person in and being able to keep them in longer. Something was up, but that's very fishy. And, when a person shoots himself once, I think it hurts bad enough that they second think about doing it again. And if he had multiple gunshots...
It just said multiple, more than one. So it's like, okay, where did he shoot himself? I mean, think about it. What's the most? Where do people mostly shoot themselves?
Usually in the head. Right? Yeah, usually in the head. Some of them do it in the heart. Some will do it there. I know somebody that.
Even then, unless he jerked his head back.
But still, if he had multiple gunshot wounds, it means he was hit at least once or at least twice. He was hit at least twice. So I just can't see somebody taking a gun and shooting themselves. Ow, ow, ow. Okay, I can do it. I just don't. I think they would go into shock almost instantly and not be able to do it. I've never done it, so I don't know, but it sure seems fishy. Yeah, well, we don't even know if he was shot in the head. He could have been shot in the leg, and maybe, who knows? Maybe they shot him in the leg or something to get him to sign something.
Who knows?
The fact that whenever you see 2 gunshot wounds in a suicide, I am instantly called BS on that.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I always have. I've always thought, yeah, because you look at, there's been several of Hillary's close friends that have died that way with a couple of gunshot wounds. And some of them are in places on the body they couldn't even have reached, like on the back of the head with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Nuts is nuts. But yeah, I have a feeling he probably got bumped off and he had to do something very bad. They probably said, if you don't, we'll kill you. And they had to shoot him to get him to do it, like some kind of a torture thing. And then they just shot him anyway. Because once you're shot once, they're going to kill you. If they're trying to get you to do something, they shoot you in the leg, they're going to kill you because they're not going to let you live after they shoot you once. Like,
So he was 74 years old.
Yeah.
Apparently he left a note.
Maybe they made him write the note.
Probably.
I don't know. That just sounds really fishy.
So according to the news, local news obtained a letter from Kemp's office. Okay, so that's his resignation letter. And that letter was penned in December 6th. So I don't know. So we'll see. Time will tell.
Jeez. Have you seen the weird fog people are seeing?
Yeah, I mean, we've had it the last 2 days, 2 or 3 days. Yeah, 2 days. I mean, I even talked about it yesterday that it just seemed odd to me that there's something with the sun, and I noticed you were talking about the sun, but I mean, I've been in 3 different time zones, and I've spent at least a week in 3 different time zones in the last 2 months since November, and in each case, it just seems like whether it's 12 o'clock Central, which would put it in 11 o'clock Mountain, 10 o'clock Pacific. It feels like to me it should be like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon because the way the shadows are and the way the sun is. I mean, it's like the days are shorter, and people say, well, it's winter and the days are shorter, but it just doesn't seem like the same like it has been over the past several years.
I was outside getting wood yesterday to bring in the house, and it felt like March or April. It was the weirdest thing. The sounds, how it sounds different in the winter than it does in the summer. I don't know, being in Texas, if it's the same way, but where I live, the different air pressure, temperature, and humidity levels make a big difference. Like sometimes I can hear the cars on the highway going over the rumble strips 2 miles away. Other times I can't hear them at all. I can hear people down at the mill. And that's over 1.5 miles away. It's weird how I can hear things and sometimes I can't. But anyway, I was outside and I could hear spring birds. I heard spring birds chirping on December 31st, which is the weirdest thing ever. And I looked around, the sun was at the right angle. It was bright like it is in the spring. And we just had the equinox, 15 days ago?
21st? What, the 21st?
So like 12 days ago. So yeah, it was just the weirdest thing to be out there. I remember looking at the ground, there's dandelions growing. And this is December. Usually it's like 20 below right now. And it was 40 something. It's been like that all December. It's been really nice. But yeah, just to be out there and it felt like spring. And I'm thinking that is so disorienting.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's like here it's getting dark at 4:30 in the afternoon. It's almost.
And where are you at? Are you in California?
California.
Farther south you go, it's interesting. When I lived in Florida, it got dark around 6 o'clock. Winter and summer, because the closer you get to the equator that happens. But here it gets dark here about a little after 4. So
yeah, well, you can see the sun starts getting, the shadows start getting deeper, and it starts getting darker. By 5 o'clock, it's pitch black dark. And I mean, I've seen it pitch black dark at 6 o'clock. Over the years, since I've been in California, it'd be pitch black dark, and I don't like being in the dark because I can't see very well to drive. But it's just crazy. I mean, it feels like it's like I said, it just feels like the days are shorter. You don't get to do much of anything. Barely get up, and then it's time to go to bed.
That can happen when the rotation changes a little bit, but Yeah, it's odd that you're not. Well, it used to be when I was working back in the day, a long time ago, I could read a newspaper at 10:30 at night. That's how late, because the sun didn't set here till after 9. You'd see it in the Farmer's Almanac, like 9:04 at night is when the sun would set. And so about 10:30 is, I mean, that's when it gets really good and dark. But I can still barely read a newspaper at 10:30. That would be on the longest day of the year. And now it's dark by 9 o'clock. It's weird. And the sun, it still says it sets at, what was it, 9:59 or 8:59? Sorry, it's not 9:59, 8:59. Still sets like, say, right at 9 o'clock. And right at 9 o'clock, it is pitch dark here in the summertime, longest day of the year. And I'm like, what is going on? Because they still say it. All of the weather places still say that's what time it sets, and it's not.
I know. It's. It's still dark enough. It's still dark enough for me to want to stay asleep at 7 in the morning.
I know. I hibernate. Yeah, 7. It's still dark here. I like to hibernate. When it starts getting dark, I start getting tired usually.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fog thing. I've noticed fog this year, but our fog is like it. I went to town a week and a half ago, and I got home just before dark, and just like a half hour later, it was dark, and all of a sudden there was fog. It was like the weirdest thing. It just poof. There, I went out. I came inside, brought my purse and stuff in, went back out to get wood, came back in, went back out, and it was foggy everywhere. It's like, how did that happen so fast? Now, that's just fog. To me, that's just fog. But people are saying, like, I just watched this video of a lady in Florida. She's in Key West, I think. And she's got a flashlight at night, and it almost looks like pellets. She said it's not wet. She goes, it doesn't make your hand wet. And Florida gets some pretty dense fog down there. But this stuff, it's big, like big chunks of moisture. It's really weird.
Yeah. I know we could... you could feel the moisture. I mean, it's like, I haven't seen dew in so long, but you talking about the birds. I know, I'm like, I don't remember the birds chirping. I mean, all of December, there have been birds, and you could hear the birds, and I'm thinking, oh, birds. I mean, and because usually the birds, even though we're Southern California, the birds, go, they fly. They go. They're after March since we've been here. Yeah. The birds have not been around about April. I guess March or April. You don't hear them. I mean, this year the birds were back in about November, right around Thanksgiving. But at least December, I would. It's like, where are y'all coming from? I haven't seen y'all before.
Last night. It was dark. It wasn't pitch dark, but it was dark. And I hear a goose honking away, flying overhead, going east. And I heard one a couple months ago after dark. You do not hear birds fly, especially geese flying after dark. I don't know where it thought it was going, but they can't see. I mean, maybe something disturbed it out of its nest, but it was like, wow, that's just the weirdest thing.
Almost like we're going back to the Julian calendar, if you look at if you go by the changing of the seasons of the weather, going through the Hebrew calendar or something, maybe we're getting a reset. I mean, I've talked about the Julian calendar, because the Julian what people don't realize, we're under the Julian calendar now. The Julian calendar has only been around for the United States since the late 1800s. We were up until the late 1800s. We were under the Gregorian calendar, which I think was closer to the Hebrew calendar.
Yeah. So. Interesting how they keep changing things, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I should let you get to your show. It's 1:45, so.
Yeah.
Interesting talking to you as always, but I got to hit the rack.
Yeah, hopefully I'm gonna have a little bit of time to talk about Jimmy Carter, because there's some because I want to read that article, because I wrote an article on Jimmy Carter about 5 years ago for PSB, and I'm going to read that.
Oh,
Just
good. He's so dirty. He was so
just to, well, it was not very much, but just, I mean, all these people that are fawning over him. Oh, he may have been a lousy president, but he is such a good man.
No, he wasn't. He was horrible. He's a horrible man.
So I'm gonna kind of remind people of some of the things
I will
that people don't
turn my
realize.
computer on by my bed and listen to you and hear your.
And I'm hoping I'm going to get through the whole book of Ruth, or it's gonna be a challenge, but we'll see.
I love Ruth. I love Ruth. So glad. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll get out of your hair so you can get to it. And thanks for the conversation. Good night, everybody. Happy New Year, Deb. Happy New Year, everyone. God bless. And see you Friday, God willing. So, good night.
Okie dokie. All right, everybody. This is On a Wing and a Prayer, and this is Deb65. And I want to say a special shout out to Roxy for holding the fort for me while I was gone. I was gone for a memorial and then for Christmas, so I'm back. And hopefully, I'm going to try. Let me see. Hopefully, I got my audio issues down, so I don't know. I'm going to try it. I worked on it in between messing with the settings, and we'll just have to wait and see. So, I'm almost afraid to try it, actually, but we'll see. So, I will be right back. I'm gonna mute my microphone, and then I'm gonna listen to D Live on my phone and see if hi Heidi. I'm gonna see if it works. Remember that there is a delay, so if it gets to be too long, I'm going to cut it off as soon as I can. Okay. All right. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got to go back to the old drawing board, so it's really frustrating. Yeah, I know. I don't know what. I know it's got to be in the settings somewhere. I just got to figure out what the settings are. I mean, the only way I could figure it out is if I did Zoom and played it through my own Zoom and then try to play the recording. So I don't know what it is. So I'll keep trying, and I'm sorry. This is really frustrating because I really want to play my video. I mean, I want to play videos and I want to play my intro. Oh, that'd be great, Poe. So anyway, while I'm doing that, because obviously that's not going to work. That's really frustrating. Okay, so let me get my. Okay. I don't know. Poe. I don't know if I can. Let me see if I can. So while you're doing that, I'm going to try to. I even took some. Yeah, I just need to find. Okay, let's see. I gotta set all this up. Okay, let's see.
Can you drop a link in chat?
All right. Hey, Poe, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Let me see. I'm going to try to see if I can get this because this is on my computer. I'm going to see if I can copy this and put this in chat, and maybe you can play it for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll do whatever I can.
Okay. All right, there you go. It's loading right now.
All right, just let it load. You're probably on a slow link or something.
I don't know if it's the.
I had to restore it. Remember when I first started streaming, my stuff was screwing up. I totally restored my computer, and I put it to original, and that's fixed it.
You know, I don't know. I know I fixed it once before, but then you know how Zoom does their updates. And the last few times it update, all of a sudden it did. I can't for some reason. I'm pretty sure it's in the settings, but I don't know how to do. I don't know how to fix.
All right, I've got Armor of God. I've got.
Yep.
God, Jed, Oh Glory. Which one do you want me to play?
Do you see the one in Zoom?
In
the Zoom chat.
Yeah, I've got it. I opened it up, the file. It's
okay. Yeah. The whole thing. Just play the whole thing.
Oh, let me try. Get it.
Okay. Thank you.
Get it. I'm gonna try. I've never done it like this before, so let me.
Well, if someone, I mean,
yeah. See, I got it already exists. Just try.
Is it not working?
Give me a second.
Yeah, if you can say in the next day or two, we can
just give me uno momento, and I'll figure it out because I ain't never done it this way.
Okay.
So let me. I got it working. I don't want to close this file now. I got it open. So.
Yeah, Ziap is saying that the video may need to be rendered or converted to 720 web optimized. I mean, if somebody can meet with me someday and in the next day or two, and we can try to find out what settings I need.
You're probably okay. It's probably me. You know, and I've got a lot of these files on, and it doesn't want to copy these files. You know, it wants to, I can share the Armor of God here. I've got it probably already on my computer, and it doesn't want to duplicate them. You know, it's telling me that I'm duplicating them. So, you know, that's where I'm running into an issue. Here, see.
Well, if you can't get it, we're just, I won't worry about it. I got 4 chapters of Ruth to get through, and.
Yeah, I can't share it that way. I mean, I'll pull up. Yeah, it ain't working for me.
Okay.
I can go to YouTube and go to Lady RWB's page and pull her. She's got Armor of God there. You know, I mean, give me a half a second. I know where to get everything. Huh. It's a weird thing. I've been here a long time. And then, you know, she's got the Armor of God. Lady RWB playlist. She has her own opener and everything. I don't put her site all the time. I'm just. Oh, I'm trying. So I hate doing stuff on the fly. I am trying though. PSB music full playlist. No, she's got that. Yeah, I really am trying, guys. She's got a lot of stuff here. And I can't find her. So, yeah, you better just start reading her. We're going to sit here and screw around.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
I'm trying.
everybody's.
I really am trying here. She should have all her prayers in one spot. And, you know, it's all set up different. I don't know. Videos.
Okay, well, I am going to go ahead. I'm just going to start doing Ruth, and you're more than welcome to stick around, or if you have something else you need to do, you know.
Yeah, I'm hanging. I'm just getting my show. I'm going to be on right after you, so
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm up. You know, so I'll relieve you. Right, you know, so 5 o'clock, I guess I come on. So I'll get stuff on, and you know, I'll be around. So if you need me, just scream out. I'm not always going to be in chat, but I'll be here. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Sorry I couldn't help you.
Yeah. At least you tried. That's
I
a big
did try.
thing.
E for effort. Something.
Okay.
Okay. I'll see you. You have a great show.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, everybody. This is on a wing in the prayer with Deb 65, and I have a show on PSB called On a Wing in Prayer. So forgive me, I'm repeating myself. It's been a while since I've been on, and it's still early. My show is Thursday mornings from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. Eastern time, and then Saturday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time. And so just a little bit, I don't want to take too much time, but I started this journey about 2021. I started a journey. I decided I wanted to go through the Bible and just learn. And the best way to do this, to learn, is to, I find a great satisfaction by doing this for you guys. I get something out of it too. So I started with Genesis 1:1. The ideas go to Revelation 21:22, and so we right before Christmas I finished up Judges. And if you remember, by the time Judges was over, everybody was doing right in their own eyes. So now we come to the a critical book, Ruth, which also starts part of the journey for, you got King David, and, which leads us to the messianic line through Jesus. And so it's a love story of great proportions. So I'm going to try to get through all 4 chapters of Ruth in 2 hours. We'll see how that goes. All right. So let's start. Ruth chapter 1, 1 verse 1. Now it came to pass. Oh yeah, and something to remember about Ruth. Ruth is one of 2 books that does not use the word Jehovah in it, Yahweh. I use the New King James Version of the Bible. I just like it. If you grow up with the King James Version, there's such a poetic, and I like that. I like the New King James Version because it kind of takes out the these and thuses and thous, and just kind of uses the more contemporary language for use and that kind of thing. And then I use the Enduring Word commentary with David Guzak. He uses different commentators from the different centuries, and sometimes they use that old English, that old Victorian English too, depending on who the commentary is. But anyway, I think I just like what he does. So here we go. Now it came to pass in the days of the judges, when the judges ruled, that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to dwell in the country of Moab. And remember, Moab is from the descendants of Lot and one of his daughters. And he and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, The name of his wife was Naomi, and the names of his two sons were Mahlon and Chilion, the Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they went to the country of Moab and remained there. When Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her two sons. Now they took wives from the women of Moab. The one was named Orpah, or Orpah. And if you rearrange the letter, you get Oprah. Think about that. And the name of the other was Ruth. And they dwelt there about 10 years. Then both Mahlon and Chilion also died, so the woman survived her two sons and her husband. So this account begins in the closing days of the judges, a 400-year period of general anarchy and oppression when the Israelites were not ruled by kings but by periodic deliverers from God, raised up when the nation sought him again. Notable among the judges were Gideon, Samson, and Deborah. Each of these was raised up by God, not to rule as kings, but to lead Israel during specific challenge, and then go back to obscurity. The days when the judges ruled were dark days for Israel. The period was characterized by the phrase, "Everyone did what was right in his own eyes." And we find in Judges 17:6, which says, of course, in those days there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And then again in 21, verse 25, same thing. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. So in these days, a man from Bethlehem left the land of Israel to dwell in the country of Moab because of famine. So Bethlehem was a rich agricultural area. This name, we know Bethlehem. The city name is meaning the house of bread, but times were tough, so he went to the pagan land of Moab. To do so, he had to hike through the desolate Jericho Pass, through the Judean wilderness near the Dead Sea, going across the Jordan River into the land of Moab. This was a definite departure from the promised land of Israel and a return to the wilderness from which God had delivered Israel hundreds of years before. These were clearly steps in the wrong direction. So God specifically promised there would always be plenty in the land if Israel was obedient. Remember, this is all about disobedience, Therefore, a famine in the land meant that Israel was a nation, or Israel as a nation was not obedient to Jehovah. And we find that in Deuteronomy 11, verses 13 through 17. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But I'll read a good portion of it. Verse 13, and it shall be that if you earnestly obey my commandments, which I command you today, to love Jehovah your Elohim and serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, then I will give you the rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the latter rain, that you may gather your grain, your new wine, and your oil. And I will send grass in your fields for your livestock, that you may eat and be filled. Take heed to yourselves, lest your heart be deceived, and you turn aside and serve other gods and worship them, lest Jehovah's anger be aroused against you, and he shut up the heavens, so that there be no rain, and the land yield no produce, and you perish quickly from the good land which Jehovah is giving you. So I ended up reading the whole thing, but Let's see. Remember, I talk about it often, Israel is still God's chosen people, even though the land is like we were talking, Chris and I were talking, the land, God, that was God's land. God gave that to Israel. And yeah, and when did God have them conquered? I mean, really conquered by the Assyrians and Babylonians is when they started doing the this child sacrifices. So, so what to do? Well, so this means to leave with the intention to return. The next verse tells us the name of the man was Elimelech, and his intent of a short visit turned it into 10 tragedy-filled years. And Elimelech never returned to Israel. The name Elimelech means God is king, but he didn't live as God was his king. So when Elimelech and his family came to Moab, they did not find life easier. Elimelech soon died, and his wife Naomi was left to care for their two boys, Mahlon and Chilion. It is hard to say that this was the direct hand of God's judgment against them. It is sometimes difficult to discern why tragic things happen. What is certain is that the change of scenery didn't make things better. Remember, you take when you have a problem, if you're trying to run away from your problems, you take you and your problems with you. They don't go away just because there's a change of scenery. We sometimes think we can move away from, just, I didn't read this commentary before that, but we sometimes think we can move away from our problems, but we find we just bring them with us. No matter where you go, you bring yourself with you, so the same problems can continue in a different place. And remember, even though one of the commandments God said, do not, do not marry outside of your own family tree, your own tribe. But we're going to find out, they took pagan wives. And again, Ruth, it's, people want to say, well, God's racist. No, that's not, because we see it through Ruth. Ruth was was from Moab. So Mahlon and Chilion grew, and they took wives among the Moabite women named Orpah and Ruth. Again, this was not in obedience to God. God commanded the Israelites to not marry among the pagan nations around them. So as time went on, about 10 years, Naomi's sons died. So now there were 3 childless widows. Naomi and her 2 daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. To be a childless widow was to be among the lowest, most disadvantaged classes in the ancient world. There was no one to support you, and you had to live on the generosity of strangers. Naomi had no family in Moab and no one else to help her. It was a desperate situation. Yeah, talk about not having a support system. All she had were her 2 daughter-in-laws. So, verse 6. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law that she might return to the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that Jehovah had visited his people by giving them bread. Therefore she went out from the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-laws, Go, return each to her mother's house. Jehovah deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. Jehovah grant you that you may find rest, each in the house of her husband. So, of course, by the, God's law, if death was really the only way you were able to remarry. Otherwise, you were to stay. Uh, let's see, she had her. So from distant Moab, Naomi heard that God was doing great things back in Israel. She wanted to be part of the good things that God was doing. Our life with God should make others want to come back to Jehovah just by looking at our lives. Our walk with Jehovah should be something that makes others says, I want that also. It's like that, be that shining light on the hill, be that beacon. The thing is part of the problem is people just don't want to hear the truth. You know, um, when you try to tell the truth, no matter how much you try to do it in love, or sometimes truth you just can't be tactful. There's just no way of being tactful. So So this set Naomi apart from many other people. Many hear of the good things God is doing in the lives of others and only wish they could have some of it instead of actually setting out to receive it. Naomi could have stayed in Moab all of her life wishing things were different, but she did something to receive what God had done for her. By all common sense, this was the wise thing to do. Orpah and Ruth had stronger family ties in Moab than they did with Naomi, so it made sense for them to stay in Moab instead of going to a new land, which was Israel, with Naomi. With these words, Naomi freely blessed them. She prayed that they would remarry. So that's what that means. This household. That's what that phrase means. Let's see. So, commentator Huey says in the ancient Hebrew word hesed, Hesed, hesed encompasses deeds of mercy performed by a more powerful party for the benefit of the weaker one. In Ruth in Ruth 1:9, Naomi described the marriage as a place of rest. God intends that each marriage be a place and source of peace, rest, and refreshment of life. Unfortunately, these days, with man's heart being like it is, it's hard to do that. And I forgot to read this part. So she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. The emotion shown is evidence of the real relationship of love between Naomi and her daughters-in-law. Verse 10, and they said to her, surely we will return to you with your people. But Naomi said, turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there still sons in my womb that they may be your husbands? Turn back, my daughters, go, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, or if I should have a husband tonight and should also bear sons, would you wait for them till they were grown? Would you restrain yourselves from having husbands? No, my daughters, for it grieves me very much for your sakes that the hand of Jehovah has gone out against me. I guess I was wrong. I was thinking Ruth didn't use the word Jehovah, so I don't know. I know there's like two books of the Old Testament where Jehovah is not used. So, according to the laws of ancient Israel, if a young woman was left widowed without having had a son, the one of her deceased husband's brothers was responsible for being a surrogate father, in quotes, and providing her with a son. Naomi here says that she has no other sons to give either Orpah or Ruth. Now, if you go back to the Genesis stories with Judah, and he had three sons, and he was Tamar was his oldest son, was to be he was, let's see, Tamar was betrothed to his older son, and his older son did something that angered God, so God struck him down. So the brother was supposed to marry her, so basically that the line could still the lineage. And because the second son refused to uh, get her pregnant or have they had physical relationship, because the Bible says he spilt his seed on the ground, because he refused to complete the act that would get her pregnant. Yeah, I know that's a nice way of saying it, but uh, God struck him down, and because of that, Judah would not allow his youngest son. The son must have been pretty young, because the son had to grow up. So when it came time for him to grow up and he could be a husband, uh, he did not allow his youngest son to marry Tamar. So Tamar, with a lot of active deceit and everything, basically she fooled Judah into getting her pregnant. So that's how they had twins. And let's see, commentators Trop says, let's see, hold on. So commentator Trop says, without having a husband, she does not once think of having children, as many wantons and light skirts do, and other, women were categorized. You had the what we call harlots or whatever. So, without having a husband, she does not once think of having children, as many wantons and light skirts do, making themselves whores and their children bastards, and all for satisfying the rage of present lust, though after they repent with grief and shame. So, in other words, he's just saying that Naomi's not going to go out and be a loose woman. And everybody thinks the Bible is boring. So this obviously weighed heavily on Naomi's heart and mind. She felt that the calamity which came upon her family came because they were disobedient, probably in leaving the promised land of Israel and marrying their sons to Moabite women. Perhaps Naomi felt a particular guilt. Perhaps she was the one who pushed the move out of Israel and who pushed to marry off the sons. Yeah, we find that. I mean, it's possible. We find that over and over when how the women use their influence over their husbands. Like Sarah with Abraham, which is the reason why we have Hamas through Ishmael, and uh, we have also the same issue with Jacob and the fight between the two legitimate wives, Leah and Rachel. So, despite this feeling, Naomi was going back to the land of Israel and going back to her God, though she felt that the hand of Jehovah had gone out against her. She did not go bitter against God. She returned to him in repentance, knowing that the answer is drawing closer to him, not going further for him. Naomi didn't accuse God of doing something wrong against her. She acknowledged his total control over all circumstances. It was actually an expression of trust in him. If Naomi was bitter or angry against God, she probably would have gone another way, further from God of Israel rather than back to him. Instead, she showed that she trusted in the sovereignty of God and knew that despite her personal calamities, he was a good God who blesses. Well, and and I've mentioned this before, if you take the, if you take, when you find those times when you don't, you're finding yourself drifting away from God. That's the reason why I have spiritual markers. Write in a diary or something to remind yourself that God is still working. God is, he there's that saying, John, was it John 5:15? I am the vine, you are the branches. If you abide in me, I will abide in you. Together we shall have much. Gosh, I think I'm misquoting it. Um, you bear much fruit. Uh, if you abide in God, we bear fruit. Uh, God doesn't. God isn't the one that leaves us. We leave Him. And sorry, I'm having an issue with coughing. So what Naomi could not see is that the hand of Jehovah would go out for her shortly. There is never a reason for us to despair if we believe the hand of Jehovah has gone out against me. If we will return to him, his hand will go out for us again. Naomi had no idea, not the slightest, of how greatly God was going to bless her in a short time. So, verse 14. Then they lifted up their voices and wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law. But Ruth clung to her, and she said, Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave you, or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die. Where I will be buried, the Jehovah do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and me. When she saw that she was determined to go with her, she stopped speaking to her. Um, Again, this is another thing about immigration. Talk about the immigration situation, and people like to use that uh, let's see, Leviticus passage. I think, if I remember correctly, Leviticus 19, about you were a stranger. But see here, you see what this is the flip side. Everybody, they take one side. They do not use the flip side. Here, Ruth is emphasizing the epitome of what a foreigner should be doing. She's saying, I'm going to follow your rules, your laws. I'm going to worship your God. I'm not going to keep worshiping my God. So she, it's, she assimilates into the culture. And, people, no, you're not being a good Christian if you tell these people they have to go back. Well, come back legally. Come back, come not illegally, but come back legally. You know, you go to. I have a cousin. I've mentioned this before. I have a cousin who, I believe I don't know why he went over to England. but I believe it was for work. It took them 10 years to become UK citizens. I don't know how long it took them to decide to become UK citizens, but it took them over 10 years. Both their kids were out of high school when they swore their allegiance to the UK. So both Ruth or Orpah and Ruth felt deeply. Both loved Naomi. Both were anxious about the future. But a choice had to be made. And Orpah chose to stay in Moab while Ruth clung to Naomi. There comes a place in our following after God where it comes down to doing. Ruth and Orpah both felt the same feelings, but Ruth acted differently than Orpah. So some are content with feeling Christian feelings, which feeling love for God, with feeling love for His Word, with feeling love for His people. But what will you do? We are glad that God didn't just feel His love for us. Instead, God so loved a world that He gave His only begotten Son. So that's, of course, that's the famous John 3:16. That's one of the first scriptures I learned as a little girl, was that John 3:16. So what happened to Orpah? Of course we don't know, but men have always concocted traditions to make up for what we don't know. Jewish tradition says this request of Naomi came 4 miles outside of Moab, and that Orpah shed only 4 tears over the thought of parting from her mother-in-law, Naomi. But the rabbis go on to say that in recompense for the 4 miles that she went with Naomi, Orpah gave birth to 4 sons, Goliath and his 3 brothers. So, again, this is speculation. This is a tradition, but no one knows really. So Naomi did what she could to discourage Ruth from coming with her back to Israel. It wasn't that Naomi didn't want Ruth to come, but she didn't want a fair weather friend either. This was a noble, even outstanding friend to friend commitment, but Ruth's commitment to Naomi went even farther. This was more than a change of address. Ruth was willing to forsake the Moabite gods she grew up with and embrace the God of Israel. She was deciding to follow Jehovah. This Gentile woman, once far from God, had drawn near to Him. Remember, and this is, I've said before, and I've told people before, she did it out of obedience. Again, she assimilates. She becomes, and that's the reason why she's in the lineage of Jesus. Okay. And your God will be my God meant that Naomi's relationship with God made an impact on Ruth. So do we make an impact on other people? Do we show God's love? And I don't mean just saying yes to everything because people think you're a good Christian. Do we actually show the truth about God? God's love is everlasting. He sent His Son to die on the cross for us as the ultimate sacrifice. But the thing is people forget He is a just God. That means there are certain things He says no to, and we're not to there are certain things we are not to compromise on. So this is striking because Naomi did not have an easy life. She had been widowed, had lost both her sons, and believed she had caused such each. I can't read. She had been widowed, had lost both her sons, and believed that she had caused each calamity by her disobedience. Yet she still honored and loved Jehovah. People should be able to look at your life just as Ruth looked at Naomi's and say, I want your God to be my God. Your trust in God and turning towards Him in toughness will often bring the thing that draws others to Jehovah. Yeah, I see those people. I won't follow a God that allows innocents to be killed and things like that. But the thing is, hey, I've said this before. Hey, you're the one that told God to get out of your life. We basically have said, God, okay, we don't want to have anything to do with you. And God makes it perfectly clear when you disobey Him, there are consequences, and He's going to allow you to face those consequences. So, excuse me, I got to clear my throat. You know, so when we move that line of what God, they're I don't know how to express it. So 10 years of Naomi's compromise in Moab never made Ruth confess her allegiance to the God of Israel. Yet as soon as Naomi stood and said, I am going back to the God of Israel, I'll put my fate in His hands, Ruth stood with her. If you think you will persuade your friends or relatives to follow Jesus by your compromise, you're mistaken. Perhaps you're sincere, but you are mistaken. Only a bold stand for Jesus will really do it. Charles Spurgeon says, you will never win any soul to the right by a compromise with the wrong. It is decision for Christ and His truth that has the greatest power in the family and the greatest power in the world too. Ruth had little knowledge of the true God, the God of Israel, but she knew He was a God of fairness and justice, so He could be called upon to hold Ruth accountable to this promise. And just like Rahab, when she noticed that the Rahab, when she allowed Caleb and the spies to she hid them from the men of Jericho, the soldiers of Jericho, and she helped them out. Verse 19. Now the two of them went until they came to Bethlehem, and it happened when they had come to Bethlehem that all the city was excited because of them, and the women said, Is this Naomi? But she said to them, Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty, or another word for Almighty is El Shaddai, has dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and Jehovah has brought me home again empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since Jehovah has testified against me, and El Shaddai has afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab. Now they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest. It was a long walk from Moab to Bethlehem. The trip was mostly uphill. We can only imagine along the way Ruth asking her mother-in-law Naomi all about the God of Israel and the land of Israel. Bethlehem was just a large village. Everyone in the village would have known everyone else and remembered those who had left years ago. Oh, why do you do that? Again. So the name Naomi means pleasant. The name Mara means bitter. Naomi used this to tell the people of Bethlehem that her time away from Israel, her time away from God, the God of Israel, had not been pleasant. It was bitter. Naomi didn't put on a false face. She wasn't going to go home, pretend everything was fine, and be pleasant. She was honest and said, "Here I am, and my life has been bitter." Why did you do that? Okay. Really? Oh, there's something here that doesn't want to do that right. Oh my gosh, it's not going to let me. It's not going to let me highlight that name, Mara. Oh goodness. I don't want to spend too much time on it. That's weird. Okay, well, you get the idea. You get the gist. So Naomi was not afraid to see the hand of God in all her calamity. Naomi knew that the tragedy that came into her life was not because of fate, chance, or blind fortune. She felt the tragedies were an example of God's affliction because she could not see the end of his plan. But she knew there was a sovereign God of heaven and didn't think she had just run into a string of bad luck. Yet, in the midst of all these bitter circumstances, Naomi was not bitter against Jehovah. We can imagine one of the villagers asking, "Naomi, if God has dealt very bitterly with you, if Jehovah has brought you home empty, if Jehovah has testified against you, then why have you come back?" And she would have said, "Because I want to get right with him again. Things have been terrible, and the answer isn't in going further from God, but drawing in closer to him." So not everyone reacts to trials in the way Naomi did. Commentator Trapp says, "Many are humbled, but not humble, low, but not lowly. These have lost the fruit of their afflictions and are therefore most miserable." Naomi came back repentant and honest. She felt that the Almighty had afflicted her, but in the coming chapters it will be shown the Almighty will bless her if only she could see it. I know, that's how I feel. Like, hopefully, I'm hoping that 25, 2025, big blessings will come to a lot of people. I just hope so. I wish I could, sometimes I'm like, I know God knows the end, but it's like, man, I wish I knew what he knew. Certainly be. Okay, I'm going to ask once. Oh gosh. So it would have been easy for Naomi to focus on what she had lost. She had lost a husband, two sons, and one daughter in law. She had lost all kinds of material possessions. All she had left was one daughter in law, Ruth. But through that one thing she had left, God was going to bring unbelievable blessing into her life. All the good that happens in the future chapters begin here with Naomi's godly repentance and honesty. It will make a difference not only in her life, but in the life of her daughter-in-law, Ruth, and in the destiny of the nation of Israel, and in our eternal salvation. It is possible for God to accomplish amazing things both now and eternity if we will turn towards him today, not only in our feelings but also in our actions. So that takes care of the first chapter of Ruth. I got an hour, a little over an hour and a half to finish it. So I got to do a reset. No. Okay, 4. Do a quick reset here, and we'll go on to chapter 2. And by the way, while I want to thank those who have helped me. I'll put in my a little later on. Put in my PayPal. I just want to thank those that helped me. You don't know how much it was a blessing to me that you could help me the way you did. So chapter 2. Whoops. Gotta share my screen. So, okay. Let's see. Hopefully I'm sharing the right screen. Yep. Okay. Chapter 2, verse 1. There was a relative of Naomi's husband, a man of great wealth, of the family of Elimelech. His name was Boaz. So Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, "Please let me go to the field and glean heads of grain after him, in whose sight I may find favor." And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." Then she left and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Verse 4, Now behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, "Jehovah be with you." And they answered, "Jehovah bless you." Then Boaz said to his servant, who was in charge of the reapers, "Whose young woman is this?" So the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered and said, "This is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab." And she said, "Please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves." So she came and was continued from morning until now, though she rested a little in the house. So Naomi was related to this man Boaz through her deceased husband Elimelech. We don't know exactly how he was related, but he was. During the time of famine, when Elimelech, Naomi, and their whole family had left the promised land and gone to Moab, Boaz had stayed behind, and God provided for him. In fact, God made Boaz a man of great wealth. And if you think about it, God works behind the scenes. Imagine. He does work behind the scenes. So 10 years before, Naomi and her family made a choice, and it was a choice made in a hard time, a time of famine. But they didn't have to make the wrong choice that they did. People of Bethlehem had not perished from hunger. They were still there, and they were blessed more than Naomi's family. So sometimes we justify wrong choices because of difficult circumstances. But God will strengthen us and bless us to make the right choice, even in difficult circumstances. Commentator Morris says the exact expression rendered "a mighty man of wealth" is elsewhere translated "a mighty man of valor," and we see that in Judges 11:1, which says, "Now Jephthah," remember the Jephthah who's basically The Gileadite was a mighty man of valor, and he was the son of a harlot. Gilead begot Jephthah. We perhaps get the force of it by thinking of our word night, Knight. So this particular relative will be revealed in Ruth 3:8-9 as a kinsman, or Goel, which is Goel, for Ruth and Naomi. This was more than merely a family relation. It will be seen that Boaz was a special family representative. He was a chieftain in the family, so he basically was the head of the household. So in Leviticus 19, verses 9-10, which says, "When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and stranger. I am Jehovah your Elohim." And then, this is kind of a social, kind of a, what they call it, oh, it's a way to provide for the widow and the poor. It was it's kind of, I guess you could call it one. I don't want to use the word welfare because they did work. They're working, but it was kind of a social program. Okay, I'm going to ask you to stop putting links out there, please. That's can be a distraction. Let's see. So, um, so Leviticus 19 commanded farmers in Israel that they should not completely harvest their fields. They were commanded to cut corners in harvesting and always leave some behind. Also, if they happened to drop a bundle of grain, they were commanded to leave it on the ground and not pick it up. This was when the social assistance program in Israel. Farmers were not to completely harvest the fields, so the poor and needy could come and glean the remains for themselves. This was a wonderful way of helping the poor. It commanded the farmers to have a generous heart, and it commanded the poor to be active and work for their food. It was a way for them to provide for their own needs with dignity. I mean, if you just hand people things, it makes them lazy. And there's something innate in our nature that wants to work for what we have. I mean, it's like kittens on the side of the road. I remember, it's funny, you couldn't give a kitten away, but if you put a value on it, like $1, then people would come all, would actually buy. So Ruth, on her own initiative, set out to glean in the field to support her and her mother-in-law, Naomi. This showed a wonderful, hard-working spirit in Ruth. It was also spiritual also. She would not have been more spiritual to sit back at home and pray for food. I wonder if she just happened, or, like I said, God works behind the scenes. It says that Ruth just happened to come to that place, and certainly that is how it seemed to her, but it was not actually but it was not how it actually came to pass. Ruth came to that field because God was guiding her. Yeah, see, I look, guys. Some of the things I say, and then I end up reading. I'm not reading ahead of time. I promise that some of it is just coming to me. Okay, this shows us some of the wonderful ways that the invisible hand of God works. If Ruth would have stayed home and waited for a quote unquote spiritual feeling, she might have had waited a long time and still probably would have gone to the wrong field. Instead, Ruth experienced the very natural moving of the supernatural hand of God. Many times when we are walking in the Spirit, we can only see the invisible hand of God as we look back. If we spend too much time trying to look for His hand ahead of us, we can make problems for ourselves. Oh gosh, do I not know it? I know I've done that many, many times. So, verse 4, now behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, Jehovah, oh, I read that already, didn't I? Sorry. This shows us something of the heart and character of Boaz. Apparently, his workers loved him and had a good relationship with him. You can often tell the real character of a man in authority by seeing how he relates to his staff and by what they think of him. As the supervisor reported to Boaz, he told of Ruth's submissive attitude. There is a sense in which the gleaning was hers by right. After all, she could have quoted Leviticus 19. Okay, Leviticus 19 back at him. But she kindly and properly asked for the right to gather in the field. Ruth may have not known it, but she was under inspection. The supervisor was looking at what kind of job she did, and he was impressed that she did a good job. And the fact that she did a good job was important because it was a good impression on Boaz. We are we are under inspection also. At times when we don't know it, we are being watched by others to see how we will walk with God, and what they see will make a difference. Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. Look, you know what? I know everybody has this. Okay, I'm going to have to. Okay, apparently, I'm going to have to do some house cleaning. People forget, y'all seem to forget that there are guidelines to D life. Okay? We could be. PSB could be taken down because if we do not keep control in chat and if you're causing disruptions um, or spamming, PSB can be taken down. Sometimes I wonder if you guys are not here to do just that. It's very distracting. It's very distracting, not just for the host, it's very rude. And I know other hosts have asked, show respect to the host. And it's not just me I'm talking about, okay? This is one reason why we have had hosts leave too, because of some yeah, sorry. I don't usually. I mean, I stopped trying to baby hold your hands and babysit you because it gets really frustrating. I come into other places and I see what goes on. So And this isn't just about being a free speech platform. It's about being just, and I'm just talking in general. Okay, verse 8. Then Boaz said to Ruth, "You will listen, my daughter, will you not? Do not go to glean in another field, nor go from here, but stay close by my young women. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Have I not commanded the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, to go to the vessels and drink from what the young men have drawn." This is very critical because he's basically saying, I'm going to protect you. I am your protector. He's basically told the men, because, widows in that day, most of the widows, they would, they would, basically be looking for a protector. So, that in some ways that kind of gave a more, a loose idea of just how available a woman could be. And now I'm not saying that these men would come and attack her or anything. I'm just saying that in the society back then, it would be, it just, uh, it would just be a, you know, they didn't have this restrictions as they did. Oh gosh. Okay, I don't usually mute anybody, but I'm tempted. So, verse 10. So she fell on her face, bowed to the ground, and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your eyes that you should take notice of me, and since I am a foreigner?" And Boaz answered her and said to her, "It has been fully reported to me all that you have done for your mother in law since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother in the land of your birth, and come to the people whom you did not know before. Jehovah repay your work, and a full reward be given you by Jehovah Elohim of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge." Then she said, "Let me find favor in your sight, my lord." And this is a little L. She's looking at him as a authority figure, not as a savior per se. "If you have comforted me and spoken, for you have comforted me and have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not one of your maidservants." These were Boaz's female field workers who tied together the cut stalks of grain. Boaz told Ruth to stay close to them so she would be well taken care of. Was blessing Ruth already, all because he guided her to Boaz's field. Boaz knew that if Ruth stayed in his field, she would be blessed. In Boaz's field, Ruth would find companionship among the women. In Boaz's field, Ruth would find protection. Let's see. Not young women. Man. In Boaz's field, Ruth would find refreshment. kind of like Jesus. The kindness of Boaz was wonderful. At this time, we have no indication of a romantic attraction between Boaz and Ruth, and we have no idea how Ruth looked, even if she was pretty, or think about it. She's out in the hot sun. She's sweaty. She probably doesn't look her best. She was probably ragged from working all day, yet Boaz extended his kindness to her. He could have just extended his kindness just because she was a kinsman, right? A kinswoman. We often find it easy to be kind to others when we can see a potential return from the investment of our kindness. Yet true kindness is shown when we extend ourselves to others who, as far as we can see, have nothing to give us. So Ruth's attitude was wonderful. Some of us would have said, well, it's about time someone noticed. I've been working all day, hard all day. Now God will give me the blessings I deserve. No, we don't deserve blessings. Not really. When you think about everything, we all think we deserve something right now. When it comes to our relationship with God, unless you have that relationship, that close relationship, we don't deserve his mercy. We don't deserve his grace, but he extends it anyway. We never see Ruth asking why all the hard things that come upon her life. Instead, she asks, why is this good thing? Why this good thing has come? This is a significant difference in attitude. So this was constantly on Ruth's mind. She was a Moabitess, not an Israelite. She knew that on the basis of her national background, she didn't belong. This made Boaz's kindness to her all the more precious. So the Bible says that we should be kind to the stranger among us, but this also applies on another level. Since our society is no longer structured around the family, for many people, their most important circle of associations are their friends. Sociologists calls this tribalization. Remember, back in 2016, I think we got the tribe. This whole tribal set. If you're not a certain race, or if you're not, you know, y'all know what I'm talking about. I've seen it happening. We've become part of a little tribe, a little circle of friends. The command to love the stranger means that we should not only associate with those of our own tribe, but that we should always welcome those outside our tribe. This is a dynamic of a small town life. Everybody knows everybody else's business. I know my dad grew up in a small town, so did my mom, and it was funny because you all knew everybody. Yet it also shows that Ruth's devotion to Naomi mattered. It was noticed. Fittingly, Boaz encouraged Ruth as if she were a new convert to the God of Israel. In many ways, Ruth stands as an example of a new believer. She put her trust in God of Israel. She had left her former associates. She had come in among strangers. She was very low in their eyes. She found protection under the wings of God. In the same way, older Christians should be like Boaz to younger Christians who are like Ruth. Charles Spurgeon says, observe that he saluted her with words of tender encouragement, for this is precisely what I want all the elder Christians among you to do to those who are the counterparts of Ruth. I want you to make a point of looking out the young converts and speaking to them goodly words and comfortable words, whereby they may be cheered and strengthened. Yeah, be a mentor to someone. Significantly, though these words were said to Ruth, they were also a prayer to God for Ruth. Christians should pray for one another. In particular, older Christians should pray for new converts. Boaz especially knew of Ruth's commitment to the God of Israel. This was his way of showing kindness and encouragement to a young believer in Jehovah. This is a beautiful picture. The imagery is probably that of a tiny bird snuggling under the wings of a foster mother. It gives the picture of trust and security, and that's a commentary by commentator Morris. And we see that in Psalm 17:8. Keep me as the apple of your eye, hide me under the shadow of your wings. Psalm 36:7. How precious is your loving kindness, O God! Therefore, the children of men put their trust under the shadow of your wings. And then Psalm 63:7 says, because you have been my help, therefore in the shadow of your wings I will rejoice. I just recently saw a picture, there was a video, and it was showed a hawk. There was two hawks, and this hawk had this little kitten under his wings or her wings. And the rescuers who came, they didn't see the kitten at first because that hawk, or I guess it was a hawk or falcon. It was, anyway, it was a bird. It was a large bird. And it had that kitten snuggled under its wing to keep it protected from the elements, from the rain, and it was it was really good. And so the rescuers, rescued the kitten, got the kitten away from the bird, and then came back for the bird because the kitten's shivering and it's cold. Yeah, and it just that God, if you go to Psalm 91, we put our God puts his God puts his covers us with like a birds of a sorry, I'm having a hard time expressing myself. He will wrap us like a bird's, the wings of a bird. It doesn't look like I'm going to make the whole. It doesn't look like I want to make the whole book of Ruth after all. So this was a polite way of saying thank you to Boaz. Ruth was also almost overwhelmed by his kindness and was polite enough to say thank you. Let's see, how many? I got 22. Verse 14. Now Boaz said to her at mealtime, come here and eat of the bread and dip your spice of bread in the vinegar. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed parched grain to her, and she ate and was satisfied and kept some back. And when she rose up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. Also let grain from the bundles fall purposely for her. Leave it so that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. So she gleaned the field until evening, and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Then she took it and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her, where have you gleaned today? And where did you work? Blessed is the one who took notice of you. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, the man's name whom I worked today is Boaz. Now Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of the Lord, or Jehovah. who has not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead. And Naomi said to her, This man is a relation of ours, one of our close relatives. Ruth said, Ruth the Moabitess, you notice how they always, just like Rahab the harlot, they always, well, not always, but that's her title, Ruth the Moabite. It was to show that she is, it's to show the importance of how she is in the lineage to Jesus. She was a Gentile. She was a pagan. She came from pagan land that did the sacrifices, and yet God honored her because she trusted God. She she obeyed Him. 21. Ruth said, the Moabitess said, He also said to me, You shall stay close to my young men until they have finished all my harvest. And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, and that people do not meet you in any that people do not meet you in any other field. So she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to clean until the end of barley harvest and wheat harvest, and she dwelt with her mother-in-law. So perhaps now we see the first hint of a romance. Boaz showed great kindness and favor to Ruth at mealtime. It would be enough to have just invited her, but he also invited her to share fully in the meal, even the privileged dipping. So Ruth also may be awakening to some romance towards Boaz. Let's see, she kept some back. She did not eat all that was offered to her, meaning that she didn't want to seem like a greedy eater in front of Boaz, and that she was sensible enough to take some home to Naomi. Ruth was satisfied because she answered the generous invitation of Boaz. She was not one of the reapers, but she sat beside the reapers. And she ate as if she was one of them, because she ate as she was satisfied. In the same way, those outside the kingdom of God and its promises can sit among the reapers at the invitation of Jesus, and by faith they can eat and be satisfied. Charles Spurgeon says, She did eat and was satisfied. Your head shall be satisfied with the precious truth which Christ reveals. Your heart shall be content with Jesus as the altogether lovely object of affection. Your hope shall be satisfied. For whom have you in heaven but Christ? Your desire shall be satisfied. For what can even the hunger of your desire wish for more than to know Christ and to be found in him? And that's in quotes. You shall find Jesus, fill your conscience till it is at perfect peace. He shall fill your judgment till you know the certainty of his teachings. He shall fill your memory with recollections of what he did, and fill your imaginations with the prospect of what he is yet to do. You shall be satisfied. This was more generous than the command in Leviticus 19. Boaz would allow Ruth to take some from among the already gathered sheaves of grain. This was also beautiful. Boaz wanted to bless Ruth, but he didn't want to dishonor her dignity by making her a charity case. So he allowed some grain to fall, supposedly by accident, so she could pick it up. Yes, God blessed Ruth. Yes, people were generous to her. At the same time, she did work hard. This was a sun up to sundown day, and Ruth worked hard all day long. We should use Ruth's example to glean everything we can from the Word of God. Ruth worked hard. She had to stoop to gather every grain. She could only pick up one grain at a time. She had to hold on to each grain and not immediately drop it. She took the grain home and threshed it. She took the threshed grain and winnowed it. She was nourished by the grain. So this was about a 5.5 gallon tub or 22 liters of barley, a wonderful day's earnings to people who had nothing. This is kind of like we get monetary. If you work, this is her way of getting payment for her work. Besides all the barley grain, Ruth brought Naomi the food left over from the small. Beside all the barley grain, Ruth brought Naomi the food left over from the meal with Boaz. This was obviously a blessing for Naomi. So, is this the same woman who came into town saying, "Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me"? Is this the same woman who said, "The Almighty has afflicted me"? Of course it is. Now she sees more of God's plan unfolding, so she can see better how all things are working together for good for those who love God. And of course, that's a quote from Romans 8:38 or 8:28. I'm sorry. Of course, Naomi told Ruth, "Stay with this man Boaz." Not only was he generous, but he was also one of their near kinsmen, the importance of which will be unfolding in the next several chapters. Let's see, how many? 18? I don't know. I'm going to have to really, okay, we got less than, I don't know, I might be able to, okay, I might get it. I might be able to get it. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, let me reset. Okay, so we're in chapter 3. Okay, chapter 3. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? Now Boaz, whose young woman you are with, is he not our relative? In fact, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Therefore, wash yourself and anoint yourself. Put on your best garment and go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. Then it shall be, when he lies down, that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go in, uncover his feet, and lie down, and he will tell you what you should do. And she said to her, All that you say to me I will do. So she went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law instructed her. And after Boaz had eaten and drank and drunk, and his heart was cheerful, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. And she came softly and covered his feet and lay down. Now it happened by midnight that the man was startled and turned himself and said, and there a woman was lying at his feet, and he said, Who are you? She answered, I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative. Then he said, Blessed are you of Jehovah, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the end than at the beginning, in that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you request, for all the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman. Now, it is true that I am a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I. Stay this night, and in the morning it shall be that if he will perform the duty of a close relative for you, good, let him do it. But if he does not want to perform the duty for you, then I will perform the duty for you, as Jehovah lives. Lie down till morning. So she lay at his feet until morning, and she rose before one could recognize another. Then she said, Do not let it be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. So he said, Bring the shawl that is on you and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 ephah of barley or ephahs and laid it on her. And then she went into the city. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, Is that you, my daughter? And she told her all that the man had done for her. And she said, These 6 ephahs of barley he gave me, for he said to me, Do not go empty-handed to your mother-in-law. Then she said, Sit still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will turn out, for the man will not rest until he has concluded the matter this day. So the time of harvest was over, and certainly Ruth and Boaz had been around each other much in the weeks covering the barley and the wheat harvest. They had many opportunity to get to know each other. However, according to the customs of the day, we can't say that Ruth and Boaz were dating in the way we think of dating in our modern culture. They were not paired off as a couple with one-on-one time with each other. Rather, they spent their time together in the context of a group, the men and women who worked for Boaz in the harvest. From God's perspective, there is much in the dating game that works against forming healthy, lasting relationships. For many people, dating means the continuing making and breaking of casual romantic relationships. Yeah, now it's come to the time where you're dating if you're sleeping with each other, if you're in a physical relationships. Patterns that teaches more about how to end relationships than how to make them last. Additionally, dating can be a relatively superficial way to get to know someone. Each person in a dating relationship tend to put on the mask for the other. For example, how many women have been deceived into thinking a man is good, nice man because he is nice to them in dating relationships? Of course he is. Often he's nice because he wants something in that dating relationship. Well, I mean, it goes both ways. Women usually want that intimacy. Men want the physical intimacy. Women also want security. A better gauge to measure the man or woman is to see how they act towards others in a group setting, because sooner or later that is how they're going to treat you. Another good is how do they treat their parents? How does a man treat his parents? So, over the period of the harvest, Ruth and Boaz got to know each other pretty well by seeing what kind of person the other was around a larger group. Naomi, I keep wanting to flip those around. Naomi knew that Ruth could best be taken care of if she was married, so she suggested that she appeal to Boaz for marriage. The Hebrew word for security in verse 1 is the same word for rest that was mentioned in Ruth 1:9, where it says, Jehovah grant that you may find rest each in the house of her husband. So when they were splitting, when they were parting ways, where Naomi hoped that her daughters-in-laws would find rest and security in the home of a new husband. This Hebrew word manawash, M as in Mary, A-N as in Nancy, O-W-A-C, C as in cat, H as in hat, speaks of what a home should be, a place of rest and security. One might easily think that it was inappropriately forward of Naomi to suggest this to Ruth. It is possible to think that Naomi plotted with Ruth to make her a man trap to go out and hunt down a reluctant Boaz for marriage. Not at all. Naomi's suggestion to Ruth was rooted in a peculiar custom in ancient Israel. The meaning behind the Hebrew word goel, which means, I think Kinsman-Redeemer, if I remember correctly. This was the point in Naomi's question about Boaz. Is he not our relative? She reminded Ruth that Boaz was their family goel. The goel, sometimes translated kinsman-redeemer, I got it right, had a specifically defined role in Israel's family life. So the kinsman-redeemer was responsible for buying a fellow Israelite out of slavery. We see that in Leviticus 25:48. After he is sold, he may be redeemed again. One of his brothers may redeem him. He is responsible for being the avenger of blood to make sure the murderer of a family member answered to the crime. That's out of Numbers 35:19, which says the avenger of blood himself shall put the murderer to death. When he meets him, he shall put him to death. Then he was responsible for buying back family land that had been forfeited in Leviticus 25:25. One of your brethren becomes poor and has sold some of his possession, and if his redeeming relative comes to redeem it, then he may redeem what his brother has sold. And usually, during the time of Jubilee is when they gave it back. If the person who had to sell their property didn't have the money to buy it back, the redeemer would give it back, without taking any monetary. And this is like, keeping it's basically keeping your the land in your family, your family inheritance. So he was also responsible for carrying on the family name by marrying a childless widow. And that's in Deuteronomy 25:5-10. I'm not going to read that because we're running out of time and that'll take too long. Let's see. But the first couple of verses says, if brothers dwell together, one of them dies and has no son, the widow of the dead man shall not be married to a stranger outside the family. Her husband's brother shall go in to her, take her as his wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother for her, or to her. And it shall be that the firstborn son which he bears will succeed to the name of his dead brother, and that his name may not be blotted out of Israel. And that's, basically is what I was telling you about Tamar and Judah, and how Judah ended up marrying his sister, his actual daughter-in-law. Commentator Morris says, in this we see that the Goel, the Kinsman-Redeemer, was responsible for safeguarding the persons, the property, and the prosperity of the family. Words from the root GL are used with a variety of meanings in the Old Testament, but the fundamental idea is that of fulfilling one's obligations as a kinsman. Since Boaz was a recognized Goel for the family of Elimelech, the deceased husband of Naomi and father-in-law of Ruth, Ruth could appeal to him to safeguard the posterity of Elimelech's family and take her in marriage. This may seem forward to us, but it was regarded as proper in that day. I don't know if people see it as forward, but I'm sure a lot of feminists would say, would look down their nose at her. So if Boaz did not fulfill his duties towards Elimelech, though he was now deceased, then the direct family and name of Elimelech would perish. Perpetuating the family name of Elimelech and every man in Israel was thought to be an important duty. Though these protections showed how important it was to God to preserve the institution of family in Israel, and that it is also important to him today. Naomi, in her advice to Ruth, showed a keen knowledge of male behavior. She instructed Ruth to make herself pretty and fragrant, and to leave, Boaz alone while he ate. So Naomi instructed Ruth to go in and uncover his feet and lie down at the appropriate time. Some might think this is a provocative gesture, as if Ruth was told to offer herself sexually to Boaz. This was not how this gesture was understood in that day. In the culture of that day, this was understood as an act of total submission. You're lying down at the feet. Remember, the whole idea of, God took the rib and created a woman out of, the side of Adam, not at his feet. Of course, people misunderstand the biblical definition of submission. They think it's, basically making yourself a slave. Don't lose sight of the larger picture. Ruth came to claim a right. Boaz was her Goel, or Kinsman-Redeemer. She had the right to expect him to marry her and raise up a family to perpetuate the name of Elimelech. But Naomi wisely counseled Ruth not to come as a victim demanding her rights, but as a humble servant. Trusting in the goodness of her kinsman-redeemer, she said to Boaz, I respect you, I trust you, and I put my fate in your hands. I mean, that's kind of scary, because he could have as easily rejected her, even though he had, showed her kindness. He could have rejected her, or he could have just used her and abused her again. Even though he showed her kindness, he could have done that too. So of course this was a situation that had the potential for disaster if Boaz should mistreat Ruth. I'm telling you, I did not read this ahead of time. Uh, if Boaz should mistreat Ruth in some way, but Naomi and Ruth had the chance to get to know Boaz, and they knew what kind of man he was. A good man, a godly man, one to whom Ruth could confidently submit. I mean, it's easy to submit to a godly, when a man is godly, it's, when he shows kindness. I mean, I think it's easy for us to, I think that, we're hardwired that when people show us kindness, we're going to try to show them kindness back. And it's easy, like if you're in a spousal relationship, if you have a kindly man who shows, women, and, uh, it's easier to submit, if you do it in the right way. And again, I'm not picking on men, because it works both ways. There are certain things a man needs to do, certain things that women need to do for you both to be in harmony. And it's not always about, you got to do it my way, the highway. You got to be willing to not demand everything that's your you're right, but you gotta be willing to work things out. So in the marriage relationship, many husbands wish they had a wife who submitted to them the way Ruth is being told here. But do they provide the kind of godly leader? Again, I did not read this ahead of time. But do they provide the kind of godly leadership, care, and concern that Boaz showed towards Ruth and others? In the marriage relationship, many wives wish they had a husband who loved, cared, and treated them the way Boaz did Ruth. But did they show the same kind of humble submission and respect Ruth showed to Boaz? Ruth humbly and wisely received the counsel of her mother-in-law Naomi. Adam Clark says, on the whole, we must say that had not Boaz been a person of extraordinary piety, prudence, and continence, this experiment might have been fatal to Ruth. We cannot easily account for this transaction. Probably Naomi knew more than she revealed to her daughter-in-law. The experiment, however, was dangerous, should in no sense be imitated. Commentator Trapp says, let none be encouraged hereby to enter into God's ordinance through the devil's portal, lest they smart and smoke for it. There was a good reason why Boaz slept at the threshing floor. These were the days of the judges when there was much political and social instability in Israel, just like we're seeing now, I think. We're seeing so much political and social instability, not just Israel, though. It wasn't unusual for gangs of thieves to come and steal all the hard-earned grain a farmer had grown. Boaz slept at the threshing floor to guard his crop against the kind of attacks described in 1 Samuel 23:1, which says, and they told David, saying, look, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah, and they are robbing the threshing floors. Remember Gideon, if you go back to Judges, Gideon was in the he was in the wine press. I take that back. Ruth did just as her mother-in-law Naomi had recommended. She heard the advice and she said she would do it, and she did it. This was an amazing scene. We can well imagine that Boaz was indeed startled, waking up in the night as he turned in his sleep, knowing that someone was out there, but not being able to see clearly because of the darkness and sleep in his eyes. Since Boaz had been there to protect against thieves, it must have given him quite a shock to wake up and know someone was there, but his shock quickly turned to wondering when he found out the visitor was a woman. Ruth identified herself and made a simple request. In the beginning, the words "take your maidservant," take your maidservant, I've lost track. Ruth again showed great humility and submission. She presented herself as Boaz's servant. Here she boldly asked Boaz to take her in marriage. The phrase can also be translated as "spread the corner of your garment over me." This was a culturally relevant way to say, "I am a widow, take me as your wife." Commentator Morris says the spreading of a skirt over a widow was a way of claiming her as a wife and is attested among the Arabs of early days. In Jouon, Jouon says it still exists among some modern Arabs. Adam Clark says even to the present day, when a Jew marries a woman, he throws his skirt or end of his talith, Talith, over her to signify that he has taken her under his protection. In Ezekiel 16:8, God uses the same terminology in relation to Israel when he says, "When I passed by you again and looked upon you, indeed your time was the end of love. So I spread my wing over you and covered your nakedness. Yes, I swore an oath to you and entered into a covenant with you, and you became mine, says Jehovah Elohim." This shows that this was not an inappropriate thing for Ruth to do towards Boaz. It was bold, but not inappropriate. Ruth understood this as she identified Boaz as her close relative, which means literally you are a Goel, a kinsman-redeemer. Though deceased, Elimelech had the right to have his family name carried on, and as Goel, Boaz had the responsibility to do this for Elimelech. This could only happen through Boaz marrying Ruth and providing children to carry on the name of Elimelech. Ruth boldly yet humbly and properly sought her rights. Apparently, there was a considerable age difference between Ruth and Boaz. It also seems that because of this, Boaz considered himself unattracted to Ruth and had therefore ruled out any idea of a romance between them. So this shows something else wonderful about Boaz. He had the right to force himself upon Ruth as her Goel, but he did not. He wasn't going to just say, "Here's a woman I want and I have her by right." He was kind enough not to act as Goel towards Ruth unless she desired it. Basically he let her come to him. He didn't pursue her. She came to him on the advice of her mother-in-law, Naomi. It also shows something else wonderful about Ruth. She based her attraction on Boaz more on respect than on image or tolerance. Tragically, many people fall or quote in love. And I always differentiate. Love is that erotic love. That doesn't last very long. There's a difference between love and being in love. See, tragically, when many people fall in love with an image or an appearance rather than a person worthy of respect, and love is actually a action verb. It's not, or yeah, action word. It's not a. You can show love. That doesn't mean it's not a feeling. Feelings are fickle. They'll come. They're here one day and gone the next. Boaz made Naomi look brilliant in her advice to Ruth. The plan worked perfectly. So Boaz was also attracted to Ruth because of her character. We do not know how Ruth looked, but we do know that she was a woman of godly character. So literally, Boaz called Ruth a Hayil, and it's HAH-YIL, woman. The basic meaning behind this Hebrew word is strength, moral strength, good quality, integrity, virtue. The same word is used in a term for heroes in the Bible. That term is a mighty man of valor. Just as courage and strength make a man a hero, so Ruth's courage and strength shown in her virtue makes her a hero. As in the Proverbs 31 woman, which is a kind of a definition of a woman of virtue. Proverbs 31 is too long. I'm not going to read it, but there's a lot of things about the Proverbs 31 woman. She takes care of the household. She does a lot of things. She also, it's not just that she's cooking. She doesn't just cook and clean and, everything. She actually runs a household. She has servants so she's kind of a boss. It's people like that Proverbs 31. If you really dig into deep with the Proverbs 31 woman, she's very much an entrepreneur. So they don't. People who say that God is misogynistic doesn't know the Bible. Okay, hold on. So wonderfully, Boaz wasn't willing to cut corners. He would do God's will God's way. He knew that if it was really of Jehovah, it could be done in an orderly and proper way. God is about order. He's not about chaos. And when we try to do things, how many times when we try to do things on our own do we create chaos? I know I do. And sometimes it's so frustrating because it's like, oh Lord, I want to know what you want me to do, and you don't hear anything. You don't get that prompting, and you try to do it, and you just find out you made a big fat mess of everything. Boaz and Ruth were not trying to hide anything scandalous. It was just that Boaz didn't want this nearer kinsman to learn that Ruth was now demanding her right to marry to a Goel before Boaz could tell him personally. I also think, and this is just my personal opinion, I think it was also keep her reputation. Just like remember with Joseph and Mary, Joseph had every right to set her aside and made a public scandal, spectacle of her but he didn't because he loved her enough. Can you imagine, coming, your betrothed coming up and say, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant and it's not yours. The baby's not yours. It's the Holy Spirit's. As a proper gentleman, Boaz did not send Ruth home empty handed. Not having any chocolate, he gave her 6 handfuls of grain. The added word ephus is almost certainly incorrect. That would be more than 33 gallons or 120 liters of grain, more than Ruth could carry home in her shawl. Jewish traditions say that the 6 measures of barley given as a gift to Ruth were a sign of 6 pious men who would descend from her, endowed with 6 spiritual gifts. David, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and the Messiah. So Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, in case you don't remember, that's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they were the 3 men in the fiery furnace, along with the Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus. So, let's see. So we're coming to the end, which is just enough time to the end. This was a time of considerable anxiety for Ruth. She had claimed her right to marriage and would be married. The only question was, to whom would she be married? Would it be Boaz or the nearer, the closer relative, Goel? The issue would be decided that very day. So I hope you enjoy the story of Ruth, in spite of all the distractions out there. Well, in the very beginning, Joseph didn't know, you know, uh, it wasn't until Joseph was thinking about putting Mary to one side that the angel of the Lord came and talked to him. He didn't know at first. Because, like I said, it's probably a shock to him. So I hope this was a blessing to you. I really wish I could get my audio, because it really frustrates me that I can't get my audio going. Uh, so if you want to help out, let me find it. I gotta find it first. It's down here somewhere. I got so many stuff. Oh, gee whiz. Okay, I'm gonna have to try to. Okay, I'm gonna have to get it this way. I don't like trying to get it this way because. Let's see, hold on. So if you can help me out, that'd be great. If you can't, so hopefully this will come up right. Um, I can't play videos. For some reason, there's something in the settings and the videos that won't let me play. So, But anyway, only got about 4 minutes or 6 minutes. So anyway, if you want to help out, if you can, if you want to, just go to my Rumble. I am up to 149 people in Rumble. Woohoo! Well, 100, technically 148 since I'm following myself. So here's my Rumble. And so I guess I will pick up with Ruth on Saturday. And so, oops, wrong one. Yeah, it's frustrating. So I gotta figure out, I've been trying to figure out what's going on. It's gotta be in the settings. Ever since they did the last 2 or 3 updates in Zoom, and it wouldn't load, it wouldn't update, so I had to reinstall it, and ever since I had to reinstall it, it just, my audio, trying to share a video is just like, it's like nails on a chalkboard. So it makes it really hard for me. So obviously I don't want to do that to y'all. So, you know, I get kind of criticized because sometimes it doesn't work anyway, but when it's like that, I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know what happened. So anyway, I wish I had time to go over, because I wanted to go over Jimmy Carter. Let me see if I can, wait a minute, let me see. I mean, the article itself is not that long. Let's see, hold on. Let me see, hopefully I can do this. Have time to do this real quick. If not, I'm gonna be filling in for Poe on Friday, so. We just don't have time right now. Ah, come on. I hate when that does that. Oh, I see Patty J is in. Hey, Patty, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm hanging in there. Did you have a nice Christmas?
We did. It was quiet but nice. Yes,
How about New Year's? Did you stay up to see the January 1st come in?
I did. Yep, my sleep patterns are all turned around. But yep, up we were up. Were you up?
Oh yeah, I actually I kind of made my daughter and my grandson. I was like, can we play a game? You know, because I mean, we just one of the things my I really admire about my brother-in-law, my sister, what they had family game night, and they were always playing family games. And when you're when you're a single parent, it makes it hard to just finding the energy to be able to do things like that. And I'm like, can we play? Let's play Mario. So we played Mario until midnight. Of course, my sister and my grandson didn't wait till 10 o'clock to want to start playing. I'm like, I want to go ahead and play. Can we play it now? And so we played till midnight, and my daughter got one of those poppers, you know, that pop confetti. So he went out and it sounded like a gunshot going off. It was like, oh my gosh. But anyway.
That's funny because recently I started doing physical therapy and I did a quick buy of an extra pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt. And the t-shirt I bought to be comfortable was a men's t-shirt. It's beautiful navy blue t-shirt with the Mario Brothers on the front.
That's
real
funny.
colorful. I mean, when my son was in, I think the sixth grade, and we lived in King County in Auburn outside of Seattle, he had a Nintendo and the first Mario Brothers game, and he eventually beat it. He just loved it. And I played it too, I confess. That was
Well,
so much fun. That brought back a lot of memories. So I smile when I see that t-shirt.
my grandson, I mean, he's 8, so he's very competitive, and at
Oh
first,
yes.
he's like what, third place, and he's upset, and he ends up winning. I think he got like four. He ended up with like 4 stars, and so he won the game. It's like,
Wow.
see, you can come from behind, but and I'm probably gonna, and for those out there, I'm going to probably repeat this. I don't know if you heard, but I've been telling some people that I found out from my sister before my brother-in-law passed. He was one of the lead investigators into the election integrity, going back as far as, well, she said the year 2018. So I'm assuming it was when they started looking into the election integrity of 2016. So, and right the day before he passed, he sent an email to his supervisor. So I'm like, man, I really wish I would love to know what his report said, because I mean, I don't know what they thought. I'm pretty sure they did not vote for Kamala Harris, but on the other hand, it's like they still go along with the narrative. So I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that would be something to get to see that. I bet you'll
Yeah.
wonder about that for a long time.
Yeah. Oh, so anyway, I'm going to let you go so you can go do your. So I'm not taking too much of your time. But thanks for hopping on. And guys, I will see y'all Friday morning, 11 to 1 for. I'm going to step in for Poe, and then I'll be back Saturday evening, 7 to 9, and we will finish up the book of Ruth. So I hope you come back. All right, and
Well,
so,
thank you, Deb. Wonderful show.
all right, thank you, and you have a great one.
Okay. You too. Love you. All right, guys. I know you weren't expecting me, but you got me, at least for tonight. So, how y'all doing? Hi, Carol. I'm Mega Mama. 907. Tipster Tippy, how you doing? Hope you're doing good. American Greenway. I think I saw Heidi out there. Hi, Crack Pipe. Hi, Jeff. How you doing? And I see Ricky. All right. Well, hi there, Yeshua. Yeshua. I just woke up a little bit ago, I confess. So, all right, let's get this going. I've got something pretty good, pretty great actually. So, in my opinion. So let me hit the share button here and pull this up. Well, there they are. I thought they were closed. Hmm. I have more windows open than I remembered. This is titled Every Day with Jesus in 2025. And again, I'm only here for a couple hours, I believe. If you don't like what I'm playing, come back in a couple of hours. But this is really good and worth a listen, I believe. So let me turn my voice off and we'll start playing.
Church family, let's stand. Let's stand today. And we're going to read